जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनंदन ब्रज जनरंजना। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजना। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter number 7, entitled Lord Krishna Instructs Uddhava. Text number 1. Shri Bhagavan-uvacha Yad atha mam mahabhaga तच्चिकीर्षितम् एव मे ब्रह्मा भवो लोकपालः स्वर्वासं मे अभिकाङ्क्षिणः। श्रीभगवानुवाच यद् आत्थ मां महाभाग तच्चिकीर्षितम् एव मे Brahma bhavo lokapalaha Svarvasam me abhikankshinaha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yat Athamam Mahabhaga Tat Chikirshitam Eva me Brahma Bhava Lokapalaha Svavasam me abhikankshinaha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yad Athama Mahabhaga Tat Chikirshitam Eva me Brahma Bhavo Lokapalaha Svarvasam me abhikankshina. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yad Athama Mahabhaga Tat Chikirshitam Eva me Brahma Bhavo Lokapalaha Svarvasam me abhikankshinaha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yad Athama Mahabhaga Tat Chikirshitam Eva me Brahma Bhavo Lokapalaha Svarvasam me abhikankshinaha. Word to word meaning. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Yat, that which, Atha, you spoke, Mam, to me, Mahabhaga, O greatly fortunate Uddhava, Tat, that, Chikirshitam, the program that I am desiring to execute. Eva, certainly, me, mine, Brahma, Lord Brahma, Bhavaha, Lord Shiva, Lokapalaha, the leaders of all universal planets, Swavasam, abode in Vaikuntha, me, my, Abhikankshinaha, they are desiring. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O greatly fortunate Uddhava, you have accurately revealed my desire to withdraw the Yadu dynasty from the earth and return to my own abode in Vaikuntha. Thus, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and all other planetary rulers are now praying for me to resume my residence in Vaikuntha. Purport. Each and every demigod has his particular abode in the heavenly planets within the material universe. Although Lord Vishnu is sometimes counted among the demigods, his abode is in Vaikuntha, the spiritual sky. The demigods are universal controllers within the kingdom of Maya, but Vishnu is the lord of the illusory potency and many other spiritual potencies. His exalted residence does not lie within the kingdom of his insignificant maidservant Maya. Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, is the supreme lord of all lords. The demigods are his separated parts and parcels. Being themselves minute jiva souls, the demigods are under the influence of the potency of Maya. But Lord Vishnu is always the supreme controller of Maya. The person of Godhead is the reservoir and root of all existence, and the material world is just a dim reflection of the brilliant scenery of his eternal spiritual abode, where everything is infinitely beautiful and pleasurable. Vishnu is the supreme reality and no living entity can ever be equal to or greater than him. The Lord exists within his own unique category called Vishnu Tattva, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All other prominent or extraordinary living entities owe their positions and potencies to the Lord. Ultimately, Vishnu himself is a plenary expansion of Lord Krishna, the original source of all the Vishnu Tattvas and Jiva Tattva expansions. Thus, Lord Krishna is the basis of everything. So, we are reading the summary of this chapter. The summary is as follows. As described in this chapter, the Supreme Lord Krishna replied to Uddhava's prayerful entreaty that he be allowed to return with him to his abode. Krishna advised Uddhava to take to the renounced order of sannyas, and when Uddhava showed interest in more elaborate instructions, the Lord further described the Avadhuta's account of his 24 spiritual masters. After hearing Uddhava's prayerful request to be taken back with him to the spiritual world, the Lord Krishna informed him that he was indeed desirous of returning to his own personal abode, because the purpose of his descent had been successfully fulfilled and the misfortunes of Kali Yuga would soon beset the earth. He thus advised Uddhava to take up sannyas by fixing his mind upon him and establishing himself in theoretical and realized transcendental knowledge. The Lord further instructed Uddhava that while remaining untouched by contamination and compassionately disposed to all beings, he should begin wandering throughout this temporary world, which is simply the combined combination of the Lord's illusory energy and the imagination of the living entities. Uddhava then stated that renouncing material things in a spirit of detachment is the source of the highest auspiciousness. But such renunciation is certainly extremely difficult to accomplish for living entities other than the devotees of the Supreme Lord, because they are very attached to sense gratification. Uddhava expressed the need for some instructions by which foolish persons who misidentify the body as the self can be convinced to carry out their duties in accordance with the order of the Supreme Lord. Even great demigods like Lord Brahma are not completely surrendered to the Lord. But Uddhava declared that he himself had taken shelter of the only true instructor of the absolute truth, Lord Narayan, the all-perfect, all-knowing master of Vaikuntha, and the only real friend of all living entities. Hearing this, the Supreme Lord replied that actually the Jiva soul is his own Guru. Within this human body, the living being can search out the Supreme Lord by positive and negative means and ultimately achieve him. For this reason, the human form of life is most dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this regard, Lord Krishna began to describe an ancient conversation between a Brahman Avadhuta and the great king Yadu. The son of Yayati, Maharaj Yadu, once encountered an Avadhuta who was traveling about here and there in great transcendental ecstasy and was acting unpredictably, just like someone who has become haunted by a ghost. The king inquired from the holy man about the cause of his wandering and his ecstatic condition, and the Avadhuta replied that he had received various instructions from 24 different gurus: the earth, the wind, the sky, the water, fire, and so on. Because of the knowledge he had gained from them, he was able to travel about the earth in a liberated state. From the earth he had learned how to be sober, and from the two manifestations of earth, namely the mountain and the tree, he had learned, respectively, how to serve others and how to dedicate one's whole life to the benefit of others. From the wind, manifesting in the form of the vital air within the body, he had learned how to be satisfied with merely keeping oneself alive. And from the external wind, he had learned how to remain uncontaminated by the body and the objects of the senses. From the sky, he had learned how the soul, which pervades all material substances, is both indivisible and imperceptible, and from the water he had learned how to be naturally clear and purifying. From the fire he had learned how to devour all things without becoming contaminated, and how to destroy all the inauspicious desires of those who make offerings to him. He had also learned from fire how the Supreme Soul enters into every body and appears to assume the identity of each. From the moon he had learned how the various phases the material body undergoes: birth, growth, dwindling, and death, and do not affect the embodied soul. From the sun he had learned how to avoid entanglement even while coming into contact with sense objects. And he had also learned about the two different modes of perception based on seeing the real form of the soul and seeing false designative coverings. From the pigeon he had learned how too much affection and excessive attachment are not good for one. This human body is the open door to liberation, but if one becomes attached to family life like the pigeon, one is compared to a person who has climbed up to a high place just to fall down again. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are reading this with the new chapter where Lord Krishna is instructing Uddhava. We started with the first shloka, which I will read the translation again. The Supreme Person of Godhead said, O greatly fortunate Uddhava, you have accurately revealed my desire to withdraw the Yadu dynasty from the earth and return to my own abode in Vaikuntha. Thus, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and all other planetary rulers are now praying for me to resume my residence in Vaikuntha. So here in this purport, we can see that there is a very intimate discussion that is happening between Uddhava and Lord Krishna. So we are at the end of Lord Krishna's manifest pastimes, and in this end, before leaving this planet, Lord Krishna is instructing Uddhava in a very important instructions, which is very essential for all the devotees, especially those who are practicing devotees. Here in this case, we are seeing that Uddhava is asking that how can I live in your presence? Please take me also along with you to the Vaikuntha. That was Uddhava's desire. He didn't want to stay in the absence of Krishna. He was asking Krishna that along with you, please take me also to Vaikuntha. But Lord Krishna has a different plan. And Krishna is asking Uddhava to lead a life of a renounced person, and in that way become detached from the material disturbances. So this is the big instruction which we can understand from Lord Krishna. Here Krishna is preparing his devotee Uddhava to lead a life of detachment. Just like many times a devotee, they claim or they say that our goal of life is to go back home, back to Godhead, which is, of course, that is the goal of life. But still there is some part of personal interest is there, because we desire to go back home, back to Godhead. That desire, if it is not in alignment with Krishna, is still considered to be selfishness. So what is important? So what is expected from a devotee? The expectation is that a devotee must follow what Krishna desires. Let us compare the two Gita, the Uddhav Gita and Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So Uddhav Gita and Bhagavad Gita. When Lord Krishna is instructing Arjuna about Bhagavad Gita, the instruction is that Arjuna wanted to renounce everything and go into the jungle. But what Krishna says? Krishna says, don't renounce. Perform your duties. Whereas to Uddhava is saying, I want to renounce and go back home, back to your place. Sorry, I mistakenly said, it is not renouncing. Uddhava said, I wish to go back home, back to Godhead along with you. But what Krishna says to Uddhava, he says, Uddhava, don't come with me, but take renounce order of life. So here we see Arjuna is instructed to perform his duties, whereas Uddhava is instructed to renounce his duties. Now how to understand these two different aspects? Arjuna has been asked that better than renunciation, that you perform the activities which I am asking you to do. Whereas to Uddhava want to perform the activity which is to be in the association of Krishna, but Krishna wants that he should take sannyas. In both the cases, Krishna wants Arjuna as well as Uddhava to act as per his will. That is, as per Krishna's will. Because whether it is renounce order of life, or whether it is a life in Vaikuntha, or whether it is a life in this material world, devotee is supposed to align himself to the will of the God. If Krishna wants you to renounce the life, then you should renounce it. If Krishna wants you to stay in this material world and act for the benefit of Krishna's plan, then you should forget everything and act for Krishna's plan. Or if Krishna wants you to go back home, back to Godhead, then you must renounce everything and go back home, back to Godhead. So that is the difference we have to understand. So here in this context, Uddhava, he wanted to go with Krishna, but Krishna is asking him to stay in this material world with a detachment mode. So that instruction is very important for all of us to understand. Second thing which I was always considering about, that in this case we see very important thing, that all the demigods like Brahma, Shiva, Indra, Maruta, Siddha and other came to Dwarka, and they do not ask Krishna to get some benediction. They are asking him to go back to Vaikuntha. They do not ask him to stay longer. Instead, they pray for his return to Vaikuntha. Now, this may surprise us because normal etiquette says when a great personality visits, we beg him to stay. So, why do the demigods pray, please return to your eternal abode? So, I asked this question to one of the devotee and he gave me some important understanding of the background. Why the demigods are praying to the Lord's return? That is very interesting aspect, because generally a devotee like the association of the Supreme Lord. Just like we see Yudhishthir Maharaj, just like we see even the gopis, we saw all these great devotees, they didn't want Krishna to leave them, rather to stay with them. So does it mean that demigods are not devotees of Krishna? No, they are also devotees of Krishna, but there is certain important principles which we have to understand. So here, there are a few reasons which is given. The question is that the demigods understand the Lord's mission is completed. So the first reason we can understand is that the demigods know that the Lord's mission is completed. What was the Lord's mission? So, being the administrative persons of this universal management, the demigods are not supposed to be sentimental. They are not sentimental observers. They clearly understand that the demons are destroyed, dharma is re-established, devotees has been protected, and Bhagavad Gita and Uddhav Gita has been so spoken. So the Lord's avatar karya, his mission is complete. So they do not want to interfere with the Lord's plan by emotional attachment. So that is one of the important aspects we have to understand. That whenever Lord appears in this world, he appears with certain mission. It is not that the Lord desired, oh, let me go for some outing, and that's why he appears in this material world. No. He appears in this material world for certain mission. And after that mission is over, the Lord naturally wants to go back to his eternal abode. So understanding the will of the Supreme Lord, the demigods, not being emotionally sentimental, not becoming sentimental, they accepted the Lord's will. So they do not interfere with the Lord's plan by emotional attachment. So what the devotee can learn from this? A mature devotee does not cling to even the Lord's visible presence. Just like a disciple may love his spiritual master with all his heart, and he wants his spiritual master to stay for a long time and give his association. But a mature devotee or a mature disciple is one who understands the necessity of Guru's presence in other places also. He understands the Guru's mission. He understands the Guru's preaching activities, and not becoming emotionally or sentimentally disturbed, he accepts the will or the plan of his spiritual master. So he doesn't stop his spiritual master. He accepts whatever the plan or mission of the spiritual master is. And rather than stopping him, a disciple always help his spiritual master in his mission. So here the demigods, being the devotees of the Lord, understanding the Lord's mission is complete, they didn't wanted the Lord to remain in this material world, because the Lord may also have other plans. And understanding those things, the demigods didn't pray. The second reason is that the prolonged presence of the Supreme Lord in this material world can be the cause of disturbance. Now it will be interesting to know that how the Lord's presence can be disturbance. So example can be given of a king who comes to a small village. So certainly for the village, the appearance of the king or the coming of the king is a joyful process, is a festive atmosphere. But what if the king want to remain there for a long time? Naturally, the whole ecosystem of the village will collapse. You will say, how is it possible? Because the king doesn't comes alone. King comes with his opulences, with his paraphernalia, with his army, so many things that comes along with the king. And let's say a small village is supposed to host all these great armies, chieftains, personalities, paraphernalia of the king and the opulences. What will happen to the village? The village itself will crumble down with his ecosystem. Similarly, when Krishna personally resides somewhere, his extraordinary opulence manifests. Just like everything becomes opulent because Lakshmi Devi personally is staying there. Second, the powerful being gathers, just like all the Yadu dynasty. All the great demigods in their Amsha form, they also have appeared on this earth. And because of this, the cosmic balance shifts. Because all the great personalities are focused at one place. So even the divine presence at certain place for a long time can create an imbalance in the material nature. So because of this situation, a king is expected to come for some time and then leave after certain time. This is for the betterment of the village also. Similarly, this material world is like a jail. Prabhupada gave the example of the material world to like a jail. So when a president comes into the jail, naturally it is a good thing. But then the problem can arise if the president want to stay in the jail for a long time. So what will happen? Naturally, the whole ecosystem of the jail will revolve around the president. The daily activities of the jail will not happen, like punishing, reprimand, and correction of the criminals will not happen because the president is there. So all this thing to happen, naturally, the jailer will expect that president to return back to his place so that the normal functioning of the jail will start again. Similarly, when Krishna appears, many things becomes abnormal. The cosmic functioning becomes disturbed. So, in order to regain the cosmic balance again, that it is still again essential for the Supreme Lord to go back to Vaikuntha. The third example, the third reason is given that the demigods are praying the Supreme Lord to go back to Vaikuntha is that there is a fear of offense due to excessive familiarity. This is a very deep point we have to understand. The demigods have already seen the Yadus becoming intoxicated, Samba offending sages, and such kind of familiarity leading to disrespect of the Vaishnavas. So when a person stays for a longer time, it is seen that we become so much familiar with them. Just like when, let's say, when a special guest comes to this temple, and he may be a great and popular personality in the whole ISKCON society. So naturally, for 1 or 2 days, his presence will be celebrated. But if he wants to stay here for longer, what will happen? Slowly, the familiarity will come. His presence will be taken for granted. He will be treated in a different way. He will not be treated in a reverential mode. Why? Because we have become familiar now. We start to speak with each other in a very casual tone. And because of that, because of this casualness or familiarity, it will start breeding the contempt of the presence, and we may start becoming critical or becoming offensive to such people. Becoming offensive to great personalities, like even to the Vaishnavas, or to the, what to speak of the Supreme Lord, even to the Vaishnavas, if we become offensive, our spiritual progress will fall down. As we see in this context, the Yadu dynasty in which Lord Krishna appeared, even the members of the Yadu dynasties took the association of Lord Krishna for granted, and because of which they have become so uncontrollably familiar that they even tried to make jokes with great saints and Vaishnavas, and in that way they try to offend them. So the presence of the great souls, if prolongedly available, it may create an offensive mentality also. So because of that, the demigods, they wanted the Supreme Lord that since his task is over, he better go back to Vaikuntha, so that the people may not take his association for granted, like that. So out of protected devotion, they said that let the Lord return to his eternal abode, where he is worshipped without offense. This is not rejection, this is deep reverence. The fourth reason is said here. The demigods are not self-centered devotees. Again, now what is the self-centeredness here? Ordinary mentality says, let the Lord stay, we are enjoying his presence. But pure devotional mentality says, let the Lord go, his desire is supreme. The demigods do not seek their own pleasure, they seek Lord's pleasure. That is why their prayer is return to Vaikuntha. So it is the desire of the Supreme Lord that is supreme. So understanding the desire of the Lord, demigods are praying what Krishna wants to hear. So that's why they are praying like that. So just like we remember that in ancient times, when a king used to go for a battle, so generally a king is greeted by his queen before going to the battle. The queen show affectionate smile outwardly, but inwardly she is afraid, she is fearful, she is sorrowful, knowing that the battle may result in many unwanted or inauspicious things. But still, the queen shows happiness on her face so that the king may not feel morose before leaving for the battle. So that is how a devotee always think. Even though devotee may desire that the Lord should always stay with him, but what is more important? Important is that what Lord wants, not what he wants. Similarly, sometimes a same relationship is there between a disciple and the guru also. Generally, a disciple is supposed to behave or to act as per the will of his spiritual master. That is the ideal understanding between disciple and the spiritual master. But generally what has been seen, a disciple have his own likes and dislikes. And that's why spiritual master says, okay, do whatever you like. And the disciple thinks, oh, my spiritual master has asked me to do whatever I like. So that means I have the permission from my spiritual master. But factually speaking, the spiritual master has not given that permission because he wants it. But he has given that permission because a disciple is interested in his own plans. And spiritual master, being a compassionate soul, understanding the conditioned nature of a disciple, he doesn't pushes the disciple so that the disciple may not break away from spiritual practices. So that is not what spiritual master wants. Spiritual master and disciple relationship is based on a disciple's complete surrender to spiritual master's desire. We should ask spiritual master what you desire, and spiritual master will first test his disciple whether a disciple is really want to do what he wants. And when a spiritual master is very much clear that yes, my disciple is completely surrendered to my will, then spiritual master will express his own personal desires of how he wants to be served. That's how the relationship between disciple and guru works. So here the demigods, understanding the mind, understanding the heart of the Supreme Lord, they didn't wanted him to stop in this material world. Krishna also wanted to go back because his mission was over, and it is better to go back to Vaikuntha, where he can again rejoin his personal associates and will be served in nice way. So all this thing describes that the Supreme Lord is not been rejected by the demigods. Demigods were not selfish in their attitude of asking God to leave the place. They were practical, they were administrative controllers, so they understand the tendency and the activity of this material world and its jivas, and accordingly they have requested the Supreme Lord to end his, or wind up the pastime. The same thing appears in Ramayana also, where after 11,000 years of Lord Ram's rule of Ayodhya, demigods come and request Lord Ram to wind up his pastime. Even with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was performing his pastime in Jagannath Puri, Advaita Acharya gave certain hints to make Lord Chaitanya realize now his pastimes are about to over. Now he can leave this material world. So all these great souls are pure devotees. They are not selfishly motivated, but understanding the desire and the will of the Supreme Lord, they just repeat what Lord wants to do. Even though they personally desire to have Lord association, they will still act as per the will of the Supreme Lord. So that is how we see in this case that Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are requesting Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna to resume to resume his residence in Vaikuntha. So that was the discussion of today's topic. Today is also the wonderful appearance day of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. So I would like to just add few important pastimes in this context only. Here we see that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is also giving a practical lessons. We may want Vaikuntha, but Krishna may want our service here, just like Uddhava. So just like Uddhava, we also need some services. Just like Uddhava, Uddhava desired to go to the Vaikuntha planet, but Krishna instructed him to remain in this material world with a detachment mode and preach his glories to the sages at Badrika Ashram. Similarly, we see in the pastimes of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur's life also that Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur was very much blissful in doing his tapasya for 10 long years. He was in a mission of completing 1 billion names of Krishna. So it was a 10 years austerity. And he was doing that and he was happy in performing those 10 years of austerity in Mayapur. He was happy there. There was one of his disciple named Kunja Babu, who was a government officer working in post office. He was thinking that there is so much need of spiritual knowledge, but where I can find a competent preacher who can come and preach the message of Lord Krishna in a authorized and bona fide way. So he came to know one of his friend that there is one Avadhuta staying in Mayapur and he is doing tapasya there for long time. His name is Bimal Prasad. And this Bimal Prasad is a great orator and speaker of Bhagavatam. So this friend of Kunja Babu has said that you go to him and request him to come to city, Calcutta, and start preaching on Bhagavatam. So he was moving around in Mayapur to search for Bhakti Sansar Thakur or Bimal Prasad before his sannyas name, but he was not able to find. And when he was just sitting on the bank of the Ganga river, he saw one mad person running from the shore into the river, loudly chanting Gauranga, 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 and immediately he dived into the Ganga water. And he was floating as if a dead man in the Ganga water. Kunja Babu was very surprised to see, who is this person? Completely madman. And somebody told him that he is Bimal Prasad. So he realized, oh, this is the person. He is completely madman. So he thought that generally pure devotees are generally mad people only. They cannot be identified so easily. So he approached Bimal Prasad with a proposal that please come to Calcutta to preach this Bhagavatam philosophy, to make the devotees everywhere. What Bimal Prasad said, oh, everyone is devotee. See, Gauranga is chanting. See, so many devotees are chanting. Can't you see? And in that way, Bimal Prasad or Bhakti Sansar Thakur just left that place. Kunja Babu became very much depressed, morose, thinking that, oh, we don't have any good preacher in this world who can speak Bhagavatam. No. And after some time, Bhakti Sansar Thakur, when he completed his vow of chanting 1 billion names of Krishna, his spiritual master instructed him to preach the message all over the world. So he was happy in chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna, sitting at one place doing austerity and tapasya. But when his guru instructed him, go out and preach in the city, he left his comfortable place and he came to city and started preaching there. That is what an ideal surrendered disciple is. An ideal surrendered disciple is always desirous to fulfill the desire of his spiritual master. Spiritual master wants certain thing, whether a disciple like it or don't like it, whether he have that desire or not, a disciple will certainly follow the instruction of his spiritual master. Similarly, in the case of Srila Prabhupada also we see, Bhakti Sansar Thakur said that you are a young educated man, you know English, why don't you preach this message of Lord Chaitanya to the Western world? What Srila Prabhupada did? Srila Prabhupada, at the age of 60, when it is not even expected at an old age for him to go out and preach, he still left the comfort of the Vrindavan, such a wonderful atmosphere of Vrindavan, pure devotee atmosphere of Vrindavan. He left everything and came to America just to preach the message as instructed by his spiritual master. Even though suffering from 2 heart attacks, he still performed this seva. It is said in Prabhupada Lilamrita, Satsvarup Maharaj writes that Srila Prabhupada used to go to the harbor to see when is the next ship going back to India. In 1965, when he came here, he was staying in the Bauri place, which is infested with so many criminals and always been threatened by some crazy person there. But Srila Prabhupada, he tried very hard. Even though without any support, he tried very hard. But sometimes he used to start feel, maybe I will not be able to do this service. And so he many times while becoming disheartened, used to visit to the harbor and ask that when the next ship is going back to India, because he thought that let me go back to India, nothing is happening here. But so whenever the date arrived to leave for India, he used to think, let me try one more time. And in that way, he used to push himself. Let me try one more time. And in that way, he was persevering because he understood this will please my spiritual master. That is what is expected from a disciple. So, when you have an ideal guru, naturally ideal disciple you will get. An ideal disciple will always follow the instructions and the will of his guru. That is what we have to understand from this. So here also Uddhava, even though he wanted to go to Vaikuntha along with Krishna, but Krishna instructed him to stay here in the material world and preach this message. Which message? Uddhav Gita. To whom? To the saints and sages in Badrika Ashram there. So that is expected. Liberation is not location, it is consciousness. We have to understand that. Even in this material world, you can be liberated, because liberation doesn't mean that only if we go back to Godhead, we will be liberated. No. Even in this material world also we can be liberated, because it is a matter of consciousness, not location. Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur was Jivan Mukta person. Means he was completely liberated person while staying in this material world. Because his whole activity is based on preaching Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada used to say that those who are preaching Krishna consciousness are already liberated. Because preaching can only happen in the liberated stage. Otherwise, it's not. Otherwise, a conditioned soul cannot preach. Because Krishna also wants. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, "Na cha tasmat manusheshu kaschit me priyakrittama." Those persons who are preaching the glories of the Supreme Lord are very dear to the Supreme Lord. And such dear devotees of the Supreme Lord are never under the material influence. They are always under spiritual influence. Krishna says in Gita that Mahatmanastu mam patha daivim prakriti ashrita. These great souls are always under the protection of my Daivi Prakriti. Daivi Prakriti means spiritual potency. So we have to understand that Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur, because his whole life mission was preaching Krishna consciousness, he was a liberated person. So liberation, again, Krishna is saying Uddhava, that don't think that going to Vaikuntha is the goal. Even by staying in this material world also, you will be staying in Vaikuntha if you are engaged 100% in Krishna consciousness. That is what instruction we can learn from here. Even Srila Prabhupada was a liberated man. Why? Because his whole action, whole lifestyle, if you see, not a single moment is left without preaching Krishna consciousness. So that's why Srila Prabhupada is also a liberated man. So, all these things we can continue to discuss, but I will stop here. Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Mahapuran ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.